Reach IV's webinar series, Know Your Top Colleges. Reach IV is a premium education and careers advisory. We offer various services to our students like profile building, application guidance, and interview preparations. You can find out more about us on www.reachiv.com. I'm Udit Bhatnagar, Senior Counselor at Reach IV. They hire graduate admissions at the FW Olin Graduate School of Business. Prior to joining the Babson team in 2013, Johanna held positions at Boston University School of Management and Suffolk University. Worked with engineering team at EMD Pharmaceuticals and also taught English for the Republic of China Air Force in Taiwan. So that's a lot of diversity right there. Welcome, Johanna, and thank you very much for joining us today.
Thank you very much. It's my pleasure.
So today we will be talking about what the admission officers look for. And I'm going to straightforward go to the questions. So Johanna, to start with, can you share with us a little bit about Babson College, All-in Graduate School of Business and the MBA programs?
I'm happy to do so. So a lot of people know Babson College because we're #1 for entrepreneurship and have been for 24 years. And a lot of people ask me, how have you stayed at the top of that? Because they assume, because a lot of people in the world see entrepreneurship as only equaling starting a new business. But we at Babson see entrepreneurship much more broadly. All of our professors, our education, our MBA programs, and all of our programs here at Babson are taught from a methodology called entrepreneurial thought and action. We teach in a way that balances action, experimentation, and creativity with a deep understanding of business fundamentals and rigorous analysis. So what this contributes to is the ability for all of our students to create economic and social value everywhere, which is the mission for our school. What this means practically is that while some of our students do start businesses during their MBA studies and immediately afterwards, we want our students to be smart entrepreneurs and also intrapreneurs. And so a vast majority of our student population goes into businesses of all different sizes, any industry that you can think of, but they go in as change makers, as people who know how to identify solutions to problems, be proactive problem solvers, and people who make a difference around the world. So that's really what we live and breathe here at Babson, that creates an incredibly collaborative environment because our students are looking at so many different directions and they really have a passion for making a difference.
That's really good to know, and thanks for sharing that background. That brings me to my next question, because there are a variety of programs which Babson offers as part of MBA itself. So being able to pick the right program is a crucial thing for our students, given the number of options available in the market. Now, All-in 2 has a number of MBA options, the 1-year and the 2-year being the most pertinent for international students. So who should ideally be applying for these programs?
That's a really great question. So let me make it pretty simple. First of all, just to say, my answer to our 1-year MBA program may be very different than other schools, other business schools here in the US, because the 1-year programs have developed very organically at different schools. And so I would suggest anyone listening to this not extrapolate my answer to our 1-year to any other schools, and really touch base with those other schools about what differentiates their 1-year from their 2-year programs. So here at Babson, we do have one MBA curriculum that we deliver 4 different ways, 2 of which are full-time, our 1-year MBA and our 2-year MBA. The only difference between our 1-year and 2-year MBA is the speed at which you complete the core courses. So our 2-year, the curriculum in the first year, 9 months, September to May of your first year, is almost entirely doing core courses with 1 or 2 electives at the end of that time period. And then you have time between the first year and the second year to do internship or business development or other experience that you'd like to further your career. And then the second year is entirely elective coursework. The 1 year, on the other hand, are people who are don't feel that they want 9 months to immerse in the core courses. They want to move their MBA forward more quickly. And so we take the same courses that are taught in those 9 months and condense it into a 3-month time period from May to August. So it is a very intensive time period to be able to complete the same material as the 2-year students do in 9 months. September to May of the 1 year program, it is exactly the same as the 2nd year of the 2-year program. And they're entirely integrated with the class. There's nothing separate. You're in the same classes as the 2-year students, as well as our evening and blended learning students. You're in the same clubs, the same forums, etc. So we really don't differentiate in that regard. We don't keep our 1 year students separate. The way that somebody should choose one versus the other is really about where are you in your life. We would say that somebody who's interested in doing the 1 year program comes from a place where they're very clear about where they want to go with their career, and they want to get back into their professional experience more quickly with the MBA knowledge, skills, and all the tools that they've developed, as well as a network. And they don't feel that they need the 2 years to explore different options and maybe do an internship in the middle. They'll do the experiential, real-world experience while they're doing the MBA coursework. The 2 year, and also just on that, the 1 year is also ideal for people coming from family businesses that they really have responsibilities they need to get back to with the family business after completing the MBA studies. The 2 year is more ideal for people who want that longer time period to explore their career options, explore opportunities in places maybe other than their home country, and they want that 2 year American experience and don't feel like they want to accelerate their core coursework. I will say that if you are somebody who doesn't come from a more quantitative background, if you're interested in the 1 year, you absolutely can do it. You just may want to take some coursework in accounting or something to enhance your quantitative skills to keep pace with the intensity of the summer coursework.
That's really a good insight into both the 1 year program and the 2 year program. The 1 year one does sound really intensive program, and I'm sure people who fit the bill would be interested in looking at Babson's 1 year program as well. So now diving a little deeper into the kind of profiles which suit this program, can you share a little bit about the background profile traits which you look for in your incoming class?
Absolutely. So my question is, are you someone who wants to make a difference? Small, medium, large, it doesn't matter. This is the type of candidate that we're looking for when we review applications. We're looking for somebody who's going to dive into our community, who's going to engage at a very high level with their classmates, their professors, the school, the community, the larger city of Boston, and that whole integrated community that is available here. So I know that's very abstract. I know some people, when they ask me that question, they come back and say, well, what industries are you looking for? And that really isn't a factor of we're only looking at one industry versus the other. For example, we have students in the 2nd year class that come from very traditional consulting and finance backgrounds. And we also have 2 high-end athletes, somebody who was a professional squash player for 5 years, and someone who was on the US freestyle ski team for 5 years. So very different backgrounds. We have people who have started businesses, but that is not a requirement to be here at Babson. And you also don't have to come in with an idea to start a business. Just to backtrack to the answer to my first question, it is a mistaken idea that you have to want to start a business to come here at Babson, and that's not the case. It's really about, are you someone who wants to solve problems and make a difference in the world, both economic and social? Then you're welcome to apply to Babson and find out what kind of community we have here.
Amazing. Just a quick follow-up question on that. In that case, do you what's the minimum experience requirement which you'll have for these programs?
That's a great detail. Sorry, I should have covered that. We don't have a minimum work experience, but we do have an average of about 5 years for both our 1-year and our 2-year MBA programs. If someone is looking to get a Babson education right out of undergrad, we actually have a Master's of Science in Management in Entrepreneurial Leadership that helps provide you with strong business knowledge in a 9-month format. So we have different options. We really are a place that we try to meet people in a way that is most helpful for them at their point in their career. But in general, we don't have a requirement for minimum work experience, but it is important to know that our average is 5 years.
That and really appreciate your input on it. Now, our students are also interested in learning more about Babson itself and like to customize their applications when they apply. So it would be great for us and for them to know that what are some of the most interesting classes and professors which you have on campus.
Sure. So as you'd probably imagine, we do have a class in entrepreneurship. So in the first mod, so our first year of the 2-year program, we split into 4 modules, and the 1 year splits into 3 modules. So in the first mod of both programs, you complete a class called Entrepreneurship and Opportunities. One of the key professors teaching in that is Heidi Neck, who received an award for Entrepreneurship Educator of the Year by an outside organization last year. And this is literally an opportunity for our students to jump into the idea that they can come up with ideas and solutions to problems that they never imagined. In fact, over the last 2 days, I've run into a lot of our students in the first year of the 2-year class working on something called their rapid prototype that they're presenting actually right now in their classes. And what it is they're getting feedback from the market. So they are on a prototype for a new idea. And the thing that's important to understand about this is it's not just the entrepreneurship and opportunities class that they're doing this for. This is a project that integrates all 4 of their classes that they're taking in Mod 1. So they need to look at the marketing perspective of their prototype. They have to look at the financial modeling of that. They have to look at the data behind the possibility of this being a prototype that would be attractive. And they also need to look at what problem are they trying to solve by presenting this product. So it's really, when you ask about what classes stand out, I'll talk about a couple others, but I also think it's really important to understand that at Babson, we want to integrate what you're learning across classes on active projects where you're really out there asking questions and seeing how your idea will fit or not fit and adapting your idea as you get feedback. Another class that I hear about constantly is our M&A class, our mergers and acquisitions class in Mulvaney. I think I've talked to so many students who are taking this class this semester, and don't get me wrong, it is a very hard class. The students in this class, they have to look at a book and review a book every single week to consider whether or not they would move forward with a merger or an acquisition. So it is a very intensive class, but all of the students I've talked to have raved about this one. Another one that I think is important to highlight is our management consulting field experience. So we have a number of opportunities to take what you're learning and actually apply it to the real world. One of them is a consulting opportunity with businesses, but the other, this managing the consulting field experience, is actually a class where an MBA student is managing one of our undergraduate teams that's doing a consulting project with a company. So it's a tremendous opportunity to be a project leader and a manager to prepare you for higher leadership positions in the real world. I could keep going, to be honest, but I don't want to inundate you with too much knowledge, but just a sample of some of the classes I hear a lot about.
No, but that's really great, because now clearly students who are interested in entrepreneurship, they have an option, but also students who are looking at consulting as a career or M&A as a career, they have great options to choose that path. That's really great to know. Now, my next question, which is slightly related as well. What are fees and faculty resources available to students who want to switch careers? or pursue entrepreneurial interests while in the program?
So there are a ton of resources, and it would take me a long time to go through all the different options. I think it's important to highlight a few different opportunities. So for people who are looking to switch careers, our Center for Career Development, our CCD office, is a part of your experience from the moment you're admitted. So even before you arrive on campus, you will have your resume submitted to them, reviewed, and you want to have a finalized copy of that before you even arrive on campus. They also are integral to you learning the different skills about how to do a job search in the US. It is a very, very different process than most other places. And it's a mistake to come in assuming things will be done the same here. It is a very proactive process in the US. You really have to engage with CCD on all the resources that they have. So they have everything from mock interview feedback to case study preparation, which is crucial depending on the industry that you're interested in, especially for consulting. But it really is a place where you need to decide the most important next steps in your career search. The opportunity to attend a seminar that they offer to the first year students that was a panel of 6 second-year students on how to do the internship search so that they could find the best position that they were most interested in for the time between their first year and their second year. And it was such an informative seminar so that the first year students could really start working now on where they were going to be next summer. So just in terms of switching careers, CCD is a key part of that. And one of the things that I want to highlight, the difference that I see with CCD at Babson is that the career counselors in CCD work on what we call verticals. So some places there's a team of counselors that work with and help them with the job search, the internship search, and then a different team of students who create the partnerships with the companies. Well, we see that as a communication divide. Here, each of our counselors are given particular industries they work on, so consulting, finance, healthcare, etc. And they both work with the students interested in that industry, as well as creating the connections with the companies in that industry. And so they have firsthand knowledge both of the students and who the students are, what they're interested in, as well as the companies, the company culture, what type of employees they hire, etc. And so it's really a much easier way for students to have access to companies as well as alumni in those areas also. So I'm going to stop there. There's a lot available. The faculty are involved in this. The alumni are involved in this. It really is a very close community. And so you really start to get to know other people who are interested in the similar things. And a lot of times when a student here at Babson finds out about an opportunity, they know their classmates that are interested in a similar type of position or internship or job, and they send it to each other because their idea is, if I don't get it, I want another Babson student to be there. And so it's really collaborative in that way. In terms of entrepreneurship, we have something called the Blank Center. I know I'm going to get the Arthur T. Blank Center for Entrepreneurship. We just call it Blank Center. It's a little shorter. And we also have our Center for Women's Entrepreneurial Leadership, CWEL. Both of these centers are opportunities to engage in entrepreneurial practices in your co-curricular time. There are opportunities to do like an entrepreneurial intensity track. There's the Butler Accelerator Program, the Women Innovating Now Accelerator Program. We have our Summer Venture Program. In about a month, we have our Rocket Pitch Day. So there's a lot of different opportunities. We also work very closely with the City of Boston. So we have a lot of connections with Mass Challenge, as well as the Women Entrepreneurial Program in the City of Boston. So I could talk quite extensively about all of these opportunities, but I'm just throwing out some high-level ones for people to look at if this is the direction that they want to go. I also want to highlight something that you didn't mention, but another big section of the population here at Babson is family business. And we have extensive support as well as coursework that specifically addresses the particular challenges of working within family businesses where you have both professional as well as family relational relationships with the people that you're working with, and how do you continue to innovate in that space. So about 15% of our population returns to family business after graduating from Babson.
Wow, that's a wide array of facilities and resources available to your students. Just a quick follow-up question: is there any of these resources between the 1-year program versus the 2-year program?
No, not at all. These are the same programs in our perspective. It's just a timeline, and so all of these resources are available to all of our students. And in fact, programs like the Summer Venture Program, which is a 10-week summer accelerator for business ideas, is also available to our alumni.
Okay, that's good to know. Now, there's a lot of curiosity among our students on what a classic day would be. Speak about the differences in a 1-year versus a 2-year program when it comes to an average day.
Sure, I'm happy to. So let me start with the 2-year program. In the first year, you start class at 8:30 in the morning, and you're in class from 8:30 to 12:30 every day. In the fall, 5 days a week, and in the spring, 4 to 5 days a week, depending on your consulting project timeline. So you have a pretty consistent schedule. You might have some afternoon meetings with CCD, so our Center for Career Development, or tutoring sessions, other things like that, academic related. But most of our students are usually here for the afternoon and evening, in addition to the morning curriculum, to participate in their team projects. So when I was leaving the office yesterday around 6:30, I was walking around the building that I'm sitting in right now, which is Olin Hall, where all of the current graduate classes are run. And I ran into students all over the place working on this rapid prototype, actual physical prototype that they were presenting this morning. So there's a lot of team work that's being done all the time in all of the classes. So that's the first year. The second year, and the September to May of the first year, the 1-year program, sorry, it gets a little confusing after a while. But the second year and the September to May of the 1-year program, like I said, is exactly the same. And that is actually, the academics are in the afternoon and the evening. We design it this way so that students can they can do consulting projects, so they have the time during the day to meet with companies. They may do internships. A number of the students I've talked to either continued internships from the summer or engage in some other experience while they then have classes later in the afternoon and evening. For the 1-year class in the summer from May to August, when they're doing the core classes, they are here also 8:30 in the morning to 12:30, and a lot of times they also have classes a couple days a week to complete the same classes in this shorter time frame. And so that is split up into 3 modules over the 3-month time frame. And then there's a couple weeks of break before they dive into the elective classes in September. I don't know if that helps, but similar, you should have at least half of your MBA engaged in co-curricular activities, not just your academics. It's an important piece of your MBA to be participating in both.
Absolutely, totally agree with that. And the 1-year and both the 2-year MBA, I think they're in co-curriculars. Now that brings me to another question, which is equally important. So how does Olin assist current international students with the career guidance and placement, especially for students who are looking to return to India? What type of support would they receive?
That's a great question, because I think this is a really important time for people to be considering what are the opportunities and the support structure in American colleges for international students. The first thing to understand about Babson MBA programs is that we are 60 to 70% international students from all over the world. We are very familiar with working with people from many different countries, many different backgrounds, and helping them to understand and appreciate the particular challenges of seeking employment here in the US. We all know that there's things happening in the world that make employment in different places more challenging, and that includes the US. And so every American college right now is under restrictions because of the federal government guidelines around the visas. And so it's important to understand that there are particular challenges because of the federal government that every school has to deal with. Because of our high international population, our career counselors are all very familiar with those particular challenges, and they help our students to think creatively about where they will be after graduation and how to get there. So CCD is an important piece of that as they look to work with them one-on-one in exploring the opportunities, networking in the US, and also understanding the American style of networking. It's also important to understand that if you're returning home, we have an incredibly large population of alumni in India, especially around Delhi, Mumbai, Bangalore, some in Chennai. I know I'm forgetting an important Hyderabad, and then there's another city, and I apologize right now, I'm forgetting what that last city was that I was talking with some of the students about. And then a fun side note, just to be aware, the last 2 years, the Indian students here at Babson have arranged for a trip to India for their classmates in the winter, so the winter break in the second year. So between the fall and the spring semester, I heard recently from one of the Indian students today that there's 50 classmates going with him to India over a 2-week time period, and they've organized visits, I think, to 6 different cities around India over that time frame. So it's not just the Indian students that have an interest in India. A lot of your classmates also have a high interest in India as well, both to explore on tourism, but also the many opportunities there. So there's a strong network, not just in India, but really globally. So I want students and applicants to think creatively about where they want to go, and not just think India or the US, but there are opportunities all over the world to take advantage of.
That's really great to know that students are taking initiatives and organizing trips to India. I'm sure this is an ongoing process, and every year you organize these trips and give some exposure to not only Indian students, but students from different countries to what businesses, startups, and generally the culture in India is. Now, next question is also a very important question from a student perspective, because MBA generally is an expensive program to take. So is there any type of financial aid available to international students applying for this program? And if so, can you tell us more about what is the ideal candidate who gets to avail these kind of financial aid options?
Absolutely. So let me clarify, first of all, financial aid versus merit-based scholarships. I'm fairly certain that from when I've talked to representatives from other schools, that like business schools around the world, at the MBA level, we do not offer financial aid, which is based on need, but instead we offer merit-based scholarships. And I make that distinction because it's really important to understand that this is really about your match for a school and what you will bring to that school in terms of your success so far, your potential for success at the school, and your potential for success as an alum. So all admitted applicants to Babson, both domestic and international, are automatically reviewed for scholarship at the time of admission. What that means is if you're admitted to Babson, at the same time, you also find out if you received merit-based scholarship and how much. So these scholarships range everything from full tuition scholarships to $10,000 scholarships. In terms of the ideal candidate for this is where the numbers are more important. So when we're making admissions decisions, we really want people who are a great match for Babson. When we get to the point of the merit-based scholarships, we're looking at your GMAT, GRE scores, your academic background, your years of work experience, and other factors like your fit for Babson. And so it's important to understand that we award scholarships as we go through the rounds. We don't save money for later rounds. Qualified, we award those scholarships. So when you're thinking about an MBA application, it's important to think through your timing of submitting that application to receive the most scholarship available. So it's definitely worth looking at what are the school's averages in terms of the GMAT or GRE, the years of work experience, the GPA, things like that when it comes to the numbers, and then really do your research around the type of school that Babson is, because it is a really different place than a lot of places, and be able to communicate to us why you want to come to Babson specifically. I think that that covers all of your question, but let me know if there's anything else that would be helpful to answer in that regard.
Yeah, that was really informative for all of our students who are interested in availing financial aid. That brings me to my last question before we take some of the questions which are coming in from the students who are attending this event. So if you had one final piece of advice to give to students in applying to these programs, what would that be?
So in preparation for this hangout, I actually talked to a couple of the Indian students that I know really well in the class. I said, what kind of advice would have been helpful to you as an applicant? So I'm going to actually share their advice and tips, and which I absolutely echo. So one of them said, as an applicant, you should really understand what the program offers and get a perspective on the diversity within the Babson student body, not only in terms of nationality, but also in terms of career aspirations. And then the other one said that the student should not limit himself or herself to rankings. In fact, should also consider the student life that grad programs offer. So building off of that point, he said, Babson's core focus is inculcating the entrepreneurial mindset of the graduate student body. And the reason that Babson does not focus much on rankings is because the diversity of the student body, not competing towards select few industry sectors. In fact, each member of the student body understands his or her niche and seeks advice, feedback, help, mentorship from people around within the community and outside in order to leverage the widespread Babson network. I really couldn't have said it better. This is really an important piece. What we do really, really well is this entrepreneurial mindset. So get to know us, get to know what that means to us, and get to know what that could mean for any applicant's career and future progress that can provide you with the ability to be a flexible and adaptable and able to make smart decisions in a not so clear environment. So even if you don't have all the data that you wish you could have. So it's a really important to get to know who Babson is as a school and not just look at numbers. I'm sorry, I need to interrupt you because you're actually still on mute, so I can't hear what you are currently saying.
How about now?
Ah, much better. Thank you so much.
That was my bad. So let me just repeat what I just said. This advice completely makes sense. First of all, because it's coming from straight from current students, and the way you've summarized it for the rest of us is really helpful too. Now, allow us to take some of the questions which are coming in from students who are attending this event live. So one of the questions which is sent to us is from Rahul from Bangalore, and he wants to know how important is community development as part of the profile of a student. Is it something really valued by Babson when you look at student profiles?
It can be one factor when being considered for admission. But the most important factor when you're thinking about any aspect of the application, in my opinion, is to make sure your story makes sense. So community development or community involvement is important if it is something that you really care about, if it's something that you just wrap into your story. So understanding that an application is about telling us your story. It tells us your story, your academic story, your potential for success in the classroom, your professional success, your community success. What type of person will you be in the Babson community? And so I'm sorry that it's not a hard and fast yes or no, but it's one factor that we look at as we get to know who you are as a person. Means and could mean by adding a Babson MBA to that complete story.
Makes sense. That makes a lot of sense. So another question from next student is it's a very generic question. How to get admitted to your university? And I guess the student wants to ask like, what is the average GMAT score you are looking at, and what is the average number of experience, which I guess you've already addressed earlier in one of the questions. But when it comes to average GMAT scores and other aspects of the profile, can you talk a little bit about them as well?
Sure, I'm happy to do that. Here at Babson, we're pretty straightforward about what we're looking for. And to be honest, we want people who are a really good match for the Babson community. That goes beyond just average GMAT or GRE scores. So I believe right now our average for the 2-year program is around a 630, which is below a lot of other schools. But when you factor in the question of, can somebody be successful in the classroom? There's a point at which a GMAT score, I probably shouldn't say this, but there's a point at which a GMAT score is just a higher and higher number. And there's a point that we know that you're going to be successful quantitatively in our class and linguistically in our class, so your English ability. And so we want people who've really done their research on Babson and that we're a good match for who they are. Of course, higher GMAT scores help with rankings, and I'll perfectly admit that as we go in. And that's one of the reasons that we are more focused on that entrepreneurial ranking, because that's really who we are at heart and what we're most interested in. Certainly, we want to see people, and I kind of hinted at this earlier when we were talking about the financial aid and merit-based scholarships. That is where the numbers are more important. We want the highest full tuition scholarships are going to go to people who are well above our averages. So not just with the GMAT GRE scores, but GPAs, years of work experience, etc. And so that's definitely something to consider because there's those 2 different stages. There's the admission and then the merit-based scholarship. So there's 2 different ways in which we look at the content of your application.
Thank you so much, Johanna. That's all the time we have today. It was a very insightful session, and all the information which you shared, not only about Babson, but the criteria which you use to filter all the profiles is very insightful and helpful to all our students. So thank you once again for joining us.
Thank you very much. It's been a pleasure to talk with you, and I am always happy to talk with anyone who has further questions. Again, my name is Johanna Beers, so Beers as in the alcoholic beverage. So easy to spell, jbeers@babson.edu, so anyone can reach out to me at any point with further questions.
Thank you. Bye-bye.